She'll pretend nothing happened, like you never mattered. She'll laugh a little louder. Stay busy post those life is good stories, just to seem untouched. But the shift she felt it when your name stopped appearing. When your presence once steady was no longer there, she won't admit it. Not to you, not to her friends, maybe not even to herself. But there comes a moment, and it's not when you explain or reach out one last time. It's when you stop. Stop chasing. Stop trying to be understood. That's when everything starts to unravel for her. Because when a man grounded in self-respect steps back with intention, not out of anger, but clarity, her confidence begins to crack in this video. We'll explore why her act starts to crumble, and how your calm detachment speaks louder than any words. Let's get into it. Number 1. The smile that doesn't. The smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She'll keep smiling. That's her mask. She wants the world, and maybe even herself, to believe she's fine, to prove she's moved on, to show that your absence hasn't left a mark. But behind that carefully curated version of happiness is a tension. She can't quite explain. The laughter looks a little forced. The photos, a little staged. The smile. It doesn't quite reach her eyes because something inside her knows she lost something real. You weren't just a man who passed through her life. You were consistent when others were unpredictable. You showed up when no one else did. You didn't play games. You didn't offer half-effort affection. You brought calm. You brought presence. And now that you're no longer around, it's not just the silence she feels. It's the contrast, the difference between what she had with you and what she's left with now. And that contrast, it's what quietly starts to unravel her. See, in the beginning, she might feel empowered by the idea of detachment. She'll act unaffected. She'll convince herself and everyone else that letting go of you was strength. But over time, your absence begins to challenge that story, because she expected you to chase to fold, to circle back like you used to. But this time you didn't. And the version of you she knew, the one who always reached out first, who couldn't tolerate the silence, who tried to fix things even when they weren't his fault, he's gone now. Your stillness speaks. Your detachment doesn't just say, "I've moved on." It says, "I've chosen myself." And for a man grounded in Stoicism, that's not an act, it's a way of life. You no longer respond to emotional bait. You no longer seek validation from someone who couldn't appreciate your presence when she had it. You've realized that peace of mind is more valuable than temporary attention, and that you don't need to be loud to be felt. And here's the part she didn't expect. It's not your presence that haunts her. It's your absence. The fact that you didn't explain that. You didn't beg, that you simply disappeared with grace. That kind of silence isn't weak, it's powerful. It forces reflection. It creates questions. It triggers a quiet panic she won't show. Because if you're not chasing, maybe you've really outgrown her. Maybe you found something better or worse for her pride. Maybe you finally realized your own worth. So while she keeps smiling for the camera, laughing a little louder, staying a little busier, you remain unmoved. A stoic man doesn't need attention to feel secure. He doesn't need to be seen to know his value. He becomes so rooted in his own journey that the chaos of someone else's indecision no longer disrupts his path. Let her smile, let her pretend, but know this: when the noise fades, when the distractions run out, and when she's finally alone with her thoughts, that is when your absence will speak the loudest. That's when the mask she's been wearing starts to crack, and she'll begin to wonder if the man she let go was the one she was never truly ready to lose. Number 2, when your energy stops reaching out. You used to be the one who, when your energy stops reaching out, always reached out first, the one who asked how her day was, who filled the awkward silences, who tried to keep the bond alive. Even when she seemed distant, you thought that if you gave more, tried harder, she'd eventually meet you halfway. But then came the realization your energy wasn't being met. It was being drained. You were pouring into someone who wasn't even holding a cup. And that kind of imbalance, it wears a man down, so you stopped. Not out of anger, not to make her chase, but because something within you shifted. You began valuing your peace more than your need for her attention. You didn't announce it. You didn't make a scene. You just stopped reaching out. That silence wasn't punishment. It was self-respect. And here's where Stoicism plays its quiet role. A Stoic man doesn't act from desperation. He acts from alignment. He knows that his energy is sacred, that his attention is currency. And when it's no longer being valued, the most powerful move he can make is to withhold it. At first, she might not even notice. She's used to you doing the emotional heavy lifting. But then something subtle begins to happen. She opens her phone and there's no message from you. She posts something and you don't react. She starts to wonder. Not because you're playing games, but because she expected the old version of you. The one who needed her. The one who chased her coldness with warmth. And now you've become still intentional. Your energy no longer reaches out. And that shift begins to drive her a little insane. Because what she thought she controlled is slipping. What she thought she could ignore is now the only thing she's thinking about. It's in this space, this absence, that the truth starts to surface for her. That maybe she mistook your availability for weakness, when in reality it was love. That maybe she confused your consistency with neediness, when in truth it was your strength. And now that your energy is no longer reaching out, she feels something. She didn't expect the weight of your absence, not just as a lack, but as a powerful presence. She can't dismiss you, didn't pull back to punish her. You simply stopped offering what was no longer appreciated. That's not bitterness. That's clarity, and that, my friend, is what Stoic discipline looks like. In a man who no longer chases but chooses. So if you're at this point, know this, she'll pretend she doesn't care. She'll keep posting, smiling, living her life like nothing changed. But when your energy stops reaching out, that's when everything starts shifting. Let her pretend. You stay grounded, stay focused, and keep walking forward. Number 3, the void where your attention used to be. Attention used to be. She felt seen, validated, important because you gave freely. You made her feel special, but now that you've turned inward, there's a noticeable gap, a void. And it's not just the lack of attention, it's the realization that your focus has moved on, that you're no longer orbiting her world, that sting hits differently when it's real. And the more she pretends it doesn't bother her, the more that quiet space you left behind starts echoing in her mind. At first, she may laugh louder, post more, act like she's living her best life, but it's not. She's trying to convince it's herself, because when a woman grows used to your consistent presence, your check-ins, your concern, your energy always pouring into her, and suddenly that current stops flowing, she doesn't just notice, she feels it in her chest. You see, a Stoic man doesn't withdraw to play games. He does it because he recognizes where his energy is no longer respected or returned. He stops feeding what only takes, and that shift is quiet but powerful. No arguments, no long speeches, just absence. Intentional absence. Imagine her scrolling through her phone, half expecting your name to appear. But it doesn't. Not because you're mad, not because you want her to chase, but because you finally placed your attention where it actually belongs, on your peace, on your purpose, on your growth. That's what she never expected. Not the silence, but the indifference that now sits behind it. And here's where it gets deeper. The moment she realizes you're no longer available. Not emotionally, not mentally, not even in thought. That's when the act begins to crack. That's when pretending not to care turns into restless nights, overthinking and quiet, scrolling through memories she once took for granted. She told herself you'd come back like you always did, but this time you didn't. Because the man you're becoming doesn't chase energy that drains him. He simply redirects it. That's the kind of presence that lingers long after you've let go. Number 4, watching you become. Watching you become unreachable. Unreachable. This is where it starts to hurt. She expected you to wait, to keep checking in, to hover quietly in the background, while she figured herself out. She thought your loyalty meant you'd stay frozen in time right where she left you. But now she sees you calmer, clearer, evolving, and that growth, it makes you harder to reach. Not because you're hiding, but because you've elevated yourself to a level where her old ways of reaching you no longer work. You're not replying out of habit anymore. You're not available for breadcrumbs or half-effort connections. You're moving like a man who finally understands his worth. You're building reading training, living with intention. And she notices, not just in the silence, but in the way you carry yourself. Now there's a quiet strength in your presence. Even from a distance, that's the part she didn't expect. At first, she'll pretend it doesn't bother her. She might post more, laugh, louder, act like nothing's changed. But the truth, it's slowly eating at her because she thought she'd always have access to you. She thought she could walk away, explore her options, then return when the timing felt right. But the man she left behind, he's not waiting by the door. He's already left that room entirely. This is the moment where your detachment becomes real, not to punish her, but to free yourself. A stoic man doesn't grow for applause. He grows because staying stagnant feels like betrayal to the self. And now that you're becoming harder to access, not emotionally distant, but elevated in energy and standards. She feels it deep down. She knows the version of you who would have bent paused or chased no longer exists if this resonates with where you are in your journey. Share your thoughts below. What part of your own growth has shifted your availability the most? And if you're becoming harder to reach, not out of pride, but because you've chosen peace over confusion type. I don't pause for the past in the comments. Let's keep becoming number 5. The unspoken shift. The unspoken shift in power Power doesn't shift through arguments or grand gestures. It shifts silently. She once believed she had you, that you'd always be there. But when you stopped chasing, the balance changed. A man who stands still in the face of uncertainty holds more power than 1,000 words. That's what Stoicism teaches. Stillness isn't weakness, it's control. She didn't feel it right away. In fact, she probably thought she still had the upper hand, that you were just pulling back for a moment, waiting for her next move. She might have even smirked, telling herself you'd come around eventually. That's the illusion she created to stay comfortable, because acknowledging the truth that you no longer respond, no longer explain, no longer seek her validation would force her to confront something she's not ready to face, that the power she once held over you is gone, and what's replacing it isn't drama or anger. It's your indifference, that quiet, calm energy that says, I don't need this to feel whole. That's where the storm begins for her, because she can't argue with stillness. She can't guilt-trip your peace. She can't manipulate a man who no longer reacts. That's when she starts to spiral. Though it may not be visible, she'll keep posting those photos, keep acting like nothing's wrong. But the truth, it's starting to eat at her. You're not begging anymore. You're not explaining yourself for the 100th time. You're not trying to fix what she kept breaking. That shift, subtle as it seems, creates an imbalance. She didn't anticipate the kind that makes her second-guess her decisions, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. Stoicism isn't about being cold. It's about clarity. It's about knowing when your presence is being wasted and stepping back without resentment. You've stopped seeking closure from someone who wouldn't even open the door when you knocked. And now, ironically, your silence has become louder than anything you ever said. It makes her wonder if she ever really knew you. It makes her wonder if maybe she lost something valuable without realizing it in time. That's when pretending not to care turns into quietly caring too much, into checking your status at night, into rereading old messages just to feel something, into wondering if you think about her at all, while you've already made peace and moved forward. So if you're in that place right now, where your calm is being tested, hold the line. Let your detachment speak. Not to punish, but to protect. She'll pretend she doesn't care until that shift starts driving her insane, the moment you became unreachable. Not because you disappeared, but because you grew. That's the moment. everything began to turn. Number 6. The way you no longer flinch. She used to control the rhythm. The way you no longer flinch, pull away, then pull you back in, but now you don't flinch. You don't react. You don't chase the high or fear the low. That calm in your demeanour unsettles her, because it shows her you found your centre. And once a man is centred, no storm can move him. That's when things start shifting. Not for you, but for her. See, she was used to being the emotional thermostat in the room. If she went cold, you panicked. If she warmed up, you melted. But something has changed now. Whether she texts or goes silent, flirts or ignores tests, you or withdraws your internal state doesn't waver. And here's the part she didn't see coming. That lack of reaction is a reaction. It tells her everything without saying a word. She'll pretend it doesn't matter. She'll laugh louder, post more, be busy. But underneath all that noise, a quiet realization creeps in. You're not emotionally tethered to her anymore that used to be her power. She knew just how to create distance, how to stir your anxiety, how to trigger a response. But when she sees that, none of it lands anymore when the bait gets no bite. Something in her begins to unravel. You're not playing cold, you're not trying to manipulate. You've simply returned to yourself. And that's what Stoicism is about, not indifference, but self-mastery. You don't suppress emotion. You've just stopped outsourcing your peace. You're not proving a point, you're living from one. And the more you live from that grounded place, the more obvious the contrast becomes. She's in motion, you are in presence, she's testing, you are observing, she's performing, and you are free. Let's be honest, at first, she might mock your detachment like it's some kind of act, but over time, it gets harder to ignore because she'll feel it when her messages no longer affect your mood, when her silence isn't met with confusion, but calm, when her games stop working. Not because you figured them out, but because you no longer care to play. And that's when it hits her that maybe she lost her hold, that maybe the version of you who once needed her approval is gone. And not just gone, but replaced by a version of you that doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, doesn't bend every time she pulls away. That realization doesn't always show up with tears. Sometimes it shows up in subtle shifts, in her reaching out more often, in her tone, softening in her, trying to reconnect without directly saying she regrets anything. But you'll notice, because suddenly she's no longer so sure of herself. And that's the moment when she starts pretending harder than ever that she's unbothered. While inside that calm you carry is slowly driving her insane number. 7. Her friends can't. Her friends can't convince her. You're just busy. Convince her you're just busy. She tries to play it cool around her friends, says you're just busy, that she doesn't really care whether you reply or not. But every time one of them casually asks, "So, did he text you back yet?" There's that brief flicker in her eyes, just a flash she'll recover. Fast laugh it off. Maybe even change the subject, but inside there's a quiet war she's not admitting to, because deep down she remembers a time when your attention came instantly when you'd check in just to hear how her day was going. That man, the one who gave her constant reassurance, feels like he's disappeared, and the version of you that's emerging now. He's composed calm and not in a hurry to prove anything. You see, Stoicism isn't about indifference, it's about discernment. A Stoic man learns to respond to the world, not react to it. You're no longer pouring energy into someone who only gave you moments of closeness when it suited her. And that choice, your choice to live with intention rather than need, is what's starting to haunt her. In ways she'll never admit out loud, she told her friends, "You were probably just caught up with work." Maybe even said, "It's not a big deal, I'm good." But silence has a weight. And when that silence comes from a man who used to give so freely, it doesn't just go unnoticed, it lingers. She finds herself checking her phone more often, wondering if she missed a notification, thinking about what she said or didn't say that caused the shift, because deep down she knows it wasn't random. Your absence isn't neglect. It's the presence you've redirected inward. You've stopped chasing temporary highs and started investing in long-term peace. And when peace becomes your priority, it begins to unsettle those who once felt secure in your chaos. That's the part her friends can't help her with. They can suggest distractions, talk about new guys or plan group nights out, but nothing quite quiets the voice in her mind that says, he's really gone. Not physically, emotionally, energetically. And, here's the irony, she may still post the selfies act unbothered and tell herself that she's fine, but you're not playing the role you used to play. You're not giving her the reaction she's used to, and that unexpected stillness, that's what drives her mad. Not because you're punishing her, but because you're no longer orbiting her world. You've stepped into your own. So if you're watching this and you're wondering whether your silence matters, remember this. It's not the absence of words that gets to her. It's the presence of your self-control. You've stopped trying to be heard, and somehow that speaks louder than anything you've ever said. Let her keep pretending she's unfazed, but know this: when a man chooses peace over performance, it doesn't just change the dynamic, it rewrites the entire story. Number 8, when your life gets better without her. Better without her. This one hits hard. She sees you smiling again. You've got momentum. Maybe your body's stronger, your mind's sharper. Your purpose is clearer than ever. And here's the part that quietly unsettles her. It's all happening without her. That's when the pretending starts to slip, because nothing drives her more insane than watching you become everything she once wanted after she let you go. At first, she'll dismiss it. He's just doing this for attention. She tells herself, he's trying to make me jealous. But that excuse only works for so long, because the truth always reveals itself in consistency. And you're not faking anything. You're not posting to prove. You're not leveling up out of spite. You've just found something more powerful than validation direction. A Stoic man doesn't grow out of reaction. He grows out of principle. His standards rise because his values evolve, not because he wants to be seen, but because he finally sees himself clearly. What really begins to eat at her isn't just the fact that you've moved forward, it's that you look free. You laugh differently. Now you walk with a calm confidence. You're no longer checking your phone, hoping to hear from her. You're living fully, and she realizes she no longer gets to influence, that she doesn't get access to the new version of you. That version is reserved for a life that no longer includes her. Think about that. You're no longer caught in the emotional loops, the highs and lows she used to control. You've reclaimed your time, your energy, your focus. Maybe you've started that business you kept talking about. Maybe you're in the gym at 6 a.m. instead of waiting on that text that never came. You're not chasing closure anymore. You became the closure. This kind of growth, silent, steady, unstoppable, doesn't make a scene, it makes a statement. And that's what drives her crazy, because she didn't expect you to detach with grace. She didn't expect you to rebuild with purpose in her mind. You were supposed to fall apart, or at least linger in the background instead. You rose without apologies, without announcements. And here's the twist. The man you are now, the man she's suddenly noticing with new eyes, that man wouldn't choose her anymore. Not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown who you had to be, to stay in that old version of the relationship. Number 9. She starts testing the waters. It starts small, like a hey, stranger. A story reply, harmless on the surface, right? But it's not just a casual interaction. It's a calculated move. She doesn't want to seem obvious, but she needs to know if the door is still cracked open, if she still has that invisible access to your attention, to your emotions. And maybe in the past, that tiny breadcrumb would have made your heart jump. You'd respond right away, trying to interpret what it meant, hoping it was the beginning of something again. But now you've changed. You don't take the bait, not because you're bitter, but because you're finally aligned with your values. You've stopped seeing her attention as a reward and started seeing your energy as something sacred. You don't respond to vague signals with hope. You respond with silence and self-respect. Stoicism teaches us that our emotions should not control us, but be observed, understood, and guided. And in this moment, your calm, steady non-reaction is not a passive stance. It's a conscious decision, a quiet act of emotional discipline. You're not playing hard to get, you're simply hard to disturb. You're grounded now, and grounded men don't chase illusions or engage in half-hearted replays of the past. She may pretend not to care. She might laugh about it with friends, say things like, "He's probably just busy." But deep down, she feels the shift. The same man who once chased her validation now stands firm in his own worth. The attention she used to control it no longer dances at her fingertips. That unsettles her more than she'll admit, because it means she no longer holds the emotional leverage. And here's what really drives her insane. She can't quite figure you out anymore. You're not reacting, not chasing, not reaching, and the stillness you now move with makes her question everything she's not used to. That she's used to being the storm in your world, but now you've become the calm. She can't shake, the one she can't manipulate, that quiet strength. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself is the one that lingers. It doesn't explode, it echoes. And when she puts her phone down after trying to provoke a response only to get none, that's when it begins to gnaw at her. She'll pretend she doesn't care, but the fact that she's testing the waters at all says she does. So, here's the question I want you to reflect on. Are you guarding your peace or gambling it on false hope? Leave a comment and share what you've noticed when you stopped reacting, or just type, "I protect my peace." Now let's see how many of us are learning to stay centered in a world that wants to pull us back into chaos. The fear that you've truly let go. Number 10. The fear that you've truly let go. This is the turning point. It's not when you ignore her, it's when she realizes you've actually moved on. No more subtle glances at her stories. No more mental what-ifs. No more lingering in the emotional space she used to occupy. You're not waiting for a text. You're not wondering if she misses you. You're not clinging to hope wrapped in silence. You're simply living fully, intentionally, and without her at the center of your world. And that's what begins to unravel her. See, ignoring her can be brushed off. She can tell herself, "You're playing a game, trying to get a reaction, but moving on. That's different. That's not a move. It's a mindset. It's no longer about her. It's about you, your growth, your discipline, your peace." A Stoic man doesn't detach because he's numb. He detaches because he understands that clinging to what's outside his control only creates inner chaos. There's a moment, and it usually comes when she least expects it, when she stumbles across a post of yours or hears about how well you're doing, and it hits her. Not only have you let go, you're doing better without her. You've taken that emotional energy you used to pour into her and reinvested it into your body, your mission, your relationships, your self-respect. You've realigned with yourself and the version of you. She's now seeing it's stronger, calmer, more rooted than the man she walked away from. She starts to notice the shift, not just in your silence, but in the quality of that silence. It's not laced with confusion or hesitation. It's stable. It's intentional. She may hear from mutual friends that you've been focused, disciplined, not out chasing validation or trying to fill the void, and that makes her question everything, because this isn't the guy she thought she left behind. This is a man who didn't just survive without her. He evolved that fear she's feeling now. It's not about losing your attention, it's about realizing she no longer has access to the version of you who once waited for her. That access has expired, and no amount of subtle hints, likes, or soft re-entries can restore what she once took for granted. She pretended not to care because she assumed you still did, but now she's facing a reality. She didn't prepare for the version of you who loved her, is no longer available, and he's not coming back. So now she watches, maybe from a distance, maybe in silence. She sees your stillness and mistakes it for indifference. But it's not indifference. It's clarity, it's discipline. It's what happens when a man stops outsourcing his peace to someone who never knew what to do with it. And the longer she sees you thriving without her, the more that pretending not to care becomes harder to maintain. Eventually, it breaks. And that's the beauty of it, brother. The quiet conclusion transformation. She never saw coming while she was busy pretending it didn't matter. You stopped pretending altogether. You stopped seeking closure from someone who closed the door. You stopped handing out your energy like it was free, and instead you started doing the one thing that changes everything you chose. That's the core of this journey. It's not about making her miss you. It's not about revenge, pride, or trying to win. It's about realizing your worth was never meant to be proven through effort. It was meant to be protected through boundaries. The moment you stopped chasing. What didn't choose you? You stepped into a different kind of power. A silent, stoic power. The kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't react, and doesn't beg to be seen because it already knows its value. So here's the reflection. When you stop trying to convince someone of your worth, what do you find in the silence? You find yourself. You find peace, direction, clarity. And ironically, that's exactly what begins to shake her, because while she's performing detachment, you've become it and the man you're becoming now. He's not waiting, he's building, living, becoming harder to reach, not to punish, but because he's finally aligned. If this video reminded you of your own shift, your own growth, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below what part hit you the hardest, or if you're in that quiet phase of becoming just type, I've chosen my peace. Let's see how many of us are walking this path, calm, centered, and unshaken. And if this message resonated, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps more men find this kind of clarity. Watch the next recommended videos on screen if you're ready to go even deeper into this mindset. And remember, you don't have to make noise to be felt. Just keep becoming, she'll feel.